speaking with Gustav Arentoft from MakerDAO. His role within MakerDAO is business development. I'm glad to have you here with us today. So let's talk about Maker. What was the initial idea behind MakerDAO and what vision do you have?
Yeah, so I mean, there was kind of like iterations of the model done beforehand, but like in 2014, Rune Christensen, he's the founder and CEO of Maker, still of like the Maker Foundation. He was the one who came up with like the current design and setup that we have just implemented now. So actually, like it's pretty incredible. We're like one of the few projects that actually has managed to develop and deploy what was originally mentioned in the first iteration of the white paper. So there have been like very few changes to it since then, and then we just deployed the full version of the protocol here in November 18th in 2019.
Yes.
So yeah.
What was the update on the 18th of November about?
That was going from single collateral DAI to multi-collateral DAI. So single collateral DAI was the first iteration of the version that had been running for some time, where the only collateral type possible in that system was Ethereum. And at the same time, we were also missing some tools in regards to stability and monetary policies of the system. So basically, November 18th, we launched multi-collateral DAI, which has opened up for the governance process around adding other collateral types as well. The other part of the update was also the DAI savings rate. So now we have both the ability to govern and like add additional collateral types to the system, which will not only be crypto collateral in the future, but will also be legacy world assets and traditional assets such as bonds and stocks, real estate and so on in a tokenized form. At least that's the hope and the goal of it. And at the same time, we also have the DAI savings rate, which means that currently DAI actually gives a 4% interest rate for holding it. You need to unlock it through this savings rate contracts. But that's really something that we have already now seen like a very big interest, with more than 40% of all the DAI out there using the DAI savings rate right now. So it's a little bit different than what we normally see in DeFi, as it's a rate that, compared to just holding DAI, there's actually no added risk to achieving this rate because it comes directly from the core system. So if DAI works, the DAI savings rate works as well. They're just kind of like a natural particle system. So it's like a different risk profile than what you would achieve through, for example, Compound. And at the same time, it's also pretty cool because it actually works with Compound. So for example, now if you have your money on Compound, all the portion of the pool that isn't utilized actually earns the DAI savings rate. So it's another one of these like where like the different like building blocks of like DeFi just really nicely intertwines and kind of like adds value on top of each other.
What do you think about the explosive evolution of DeFi in the last year?
I think as we have seen before in crypto, is that if you like establish like a strong use case or like a strong environment around something, then it can pretty quickly take off. I mean, of course, I don't think anyone could have predicted that it would go so fast. But it's definitely been like a year where there's been like so many decentralized finance products coming out, and we see like more and more of these services springing out. So it definitely feels like we are like on the right path. I wouldn't say that I expected it to happen because I probably didn't in this way, right? But it really seems that especially there's this like kind of like people make these like draw similarities to like Lego, like the money building blocks they call it. And I think this was actually one of the things that made it possible, right? Because people could take and like use like code and software that other people put like so many hours into, and then they very easily could create new products and services on top of it, right? I think dApp is like a very good example, where it's just these two brothers from India who participated in a hackathon, and they just received around $2 million in funding towards the end of last year, because they just created a product that intertwined, like that put itself in the intersection between some of the other DeFi protocols, right? So I think that there's like a lot of opportunity for people to build products where they can take and use the infrastructure that is already being built. And I think that is just something that, really can like help speed up the process and then really, like multiply the effect of the products that are coming out.
Do you see some competitors to MakerDAO?
I think it depends on what you view as competition, right? Like some people, have like said to me in the past and so on, that they see us as, like battling with, for example, Compound. But I don't really agree with that. I really don't see something as Compound as a competitor, for example. I believe that, it's very synergetic, what is happening between Maker and Compound. And I do believe that we really need kind of like this like healthy competition, because like as we've seen so far as well, that like it really helps drive down the rates. So like the DeFi rates, they really spiked at one point, right? Which was pretty good for people who wanted to lend out money, but the people who wanted to actually borrow money, it was getting pretty expensive. It's actually about 20. So it was pretty high, and there was like a lot of negative comments about that, right? But like a positive thing was then that Compound went in and actually took like a pretty big market share from Maker, and by doing that, they actually pulled down the stability fee as well, right? And I know, for example, now that whenever we update our stability fee and our DAI savings rate, it automatically gets calculated into the Compound interest rates. So like we really follow each other, and in that sense, the arbitrage between the protocols, which is also what dApp, the Indian team I mentioned before, is working on that specific use case, actually helps bring down the prices and innovates the products. So we know that we will continue to have like very strong products. And then there's like the other part of it, which is like in the stablecoin space. I think that DAI is still in a very unique position. I don't think any of the other decentralized stablecoins has really proved a lot yet. It might happen in the future, right? But already now, with the DAI savings rate, I feel pretty confident that we will maintain like our strong position in the stablecoin, the decentralized stablecoin market throughout the year, and hopefully we can start overtaking some of the centralized ones as well. But like one of the big things I think for us is that we haven't been focusing that much on trading and on exchanges. We've done a little bit more throughout 2019, but we have really focused a lot on getting like applications and products using DAI. So I also believe that like the use case that we have been like targeting is a little bit different. As you know, like the centralized stablecoins are still mostly used for trading and not really used in applications that much.
Do you think crypto has a real use case already?
Like our hypothesis is just that we truly believe that crypto has a stronger position in like the everyday life, and we just want to make sure that DAI, when that comes to that point, then DAI will be like the default stablecoin used for those things, because we do truly believe that the DAI is superior compared to the centralized versions. Not only like properties, I mean, it gives a really good interest rate. There's like a lot of cool things you can do with DAI in terms of like decentralized finance, but also just having something which is trustless. We believe that is a pretty big value add.
Do you think DAO could replace banks?
No, I know that there's probably some people who's like more anarchistic than I am, but I don't see like the goal for like Maker at least to be replacing banks. Like what I really hope we will achieve is that we will bring efficiency to some of the very inefficient processes that happens in the traditional financial world. That we can take some of the services that is being enabled by smart contracts and apply that to traditional financial instruments, and thereby really gain the efficiency of the blockchain in the use cases where it makes sense. But like some things that you always do with like the trade-off is, like decentralization also creates some processes that are more inefficient, right? So like it's always like a trade-off. There's like some things that you can really optimize with the blockchain, but there's also some things which would just be made much more inefficient.
For which use case do you consider it to be inefficient?
So for example, today in like traditional finance, you have like a lot of decisions that just gets made, by like individuals, right? And like I believe that like a lot, like of course, like some of the decisions you can take them and like apply them directly, like only using smart contracts and stuff. But I also believe that there's just some things. So for example, like under collateralized loans, right? I think that would be very difficult to do in a decentralized setting, because if you don't have like a central custodian, like a central entity to kind of like hold you reliable, like accountable for your credit or like your loan, then it can be a very difficult thing, right? Because like you wouldn't have anyone to really be able to like legally like get you to repay the balance and things like that. So I still believe that some of the things doesn't necessarily need to go onto like the blockchain or into a smart contract, where like the traditional system is pretty strong already, right? And I believe that is specifically in regard to like individual mortgages, for example, that seems like a pretty strong. I mean, for example, right now in Denmark we have negative interest rates. I mean, I just don't see just because you put that into a smart contract doesn't make it more easy to compete with, right? Because if the banks are losing money on it, then you probably couldn't get like a decentralized community to do it anyways. But then there's like some of the like very easy things, which is like transactions and specifically between countries and stuff like that, which is just like wildly inefficient today, right? So there's definitely some stuff in like the settlement layers and settlement processes that we can effectivize a lot. But I do believe that there will be like a place for like traditional finance still, of course. And there will be some things, we have run like a lot of pilots also with legacy world collateral, and we just came to like some of the conclusions is that that it's very difficult to compete with something which already today is like and like doesn't net a profit for the banks, right?
I think that Maker is really important so that crises, as in those that happened in 2008 and 2009, won't happen again.
The Maker model is a response directly to what happened in 2008 and 9, right? Where back then the incentive around the issuance of mortgages and mortgage-backed securities was just completely skewed, right? So like with the system we have, we are definitely trying to improve stuff like that, and like mortgage-backed securities is something that we could use as a pretty strong collateral in our system as well, right? But it is also something where you just need to be cautious.
What upcoming milestones are you most excited about?
So I mean, first off, I'm really looking forward to seeing like the old system like shut down and like with like a global settlement, so like when that happens and we like only will be running the multi-collateral DAI, I think that would be like a pretty big milestone. And then I'm really looking forward to seeing, so far we've been pretty busy like migrating, making sure that like the system could kind of like maintain itself, and we've been working on gradual decentralization. So over the last few weeks, we have started to hand off more and more of the governance processes to the community, and this is something that we will continue throughout the year. So throughout the year, we really hope to be able to completely hand over control of the protocol like only to the community, right? So I'm really looking forward to seeing like how the governance plays out throughout the year, and hopefully we will be able to like incentivize and have more and more people joining the governance throughout the year. That's really like one of the main priorities for us. And at the same time, along the way, I'm really looking forward to us seeing adaptation of other collateral types in the protocol, right? I mean, there's a reason for it being called a multi-collateral DAI. That's not just to have Ethereum and BET in there,
Yeah,
it is really because we have like this vision of like the protocol eventually being able to take up, hundreds, if not thousands of collateral types all over the world, right?
What do you think about the critics of MakerDAO? What could endanger the whole project?
Yeah, so I think in general, there's always a lot of critics, especially if you're like one of the larger projects in like a certain segment of the industry, right? We know that we're not like the largest crypto project, or we're not the largest stablecoin project neither. But within decentralized finance, we are the largest project, and we're also the biggest dApp and an application on Ethereum. So in that sense, we do have a lot of people who's like scrutinizing kind of like what we do. And there's been like lately, there's been like some discussions around some of the like decisions in like the path towards decentralization. So specifically around for example like delay on smart contract implementations. We had some critics in that regard, and there's also been in regards to just like I think governance in general. That like some people think that like the foundation plays too big of a role, and like if we were in a situation now where we could completely like hand off the governance, I mean that would be awesome, right? But I think one thing that people also need to keep in mind is that as long as you have developers working on a project, it's very difficult to like keep it decentralized, right? So that is why we really work with like gradual decentralization. We hope to really continue to prove that this is like the goal and the ambition of the project is completely handed off to the community. But it is something that needs to happen gradually, and every single time that people they point out like something that they're like criticizing the system, what they also need to keep in mind is that it's usually based on a trade-off, right? So for example, there was the delay in smart contract implementation, which was 0 before, and that was basically because that like when you launch new code, right, you need to be able to update the contracts, right? Because if you find a bug in it during the initial mainnet hours, you need to be able to fix it immediately, right? Where if you have a delay in the smart contract implementation, let's say 12 hours, and you basically go and you put in like a proposal for the bug to fix the bug with a new smart contract, well, then you basically give people 12 hours to exploit it, right? So in that sense, there was that specific case there was like pointed out like a governance attack, but at the same time, the trade-off was that like when we just launched, we needed to be sure that we could actually update the contracts immediately if needed, right? So often when people they look at these decentralized systems, these like very complex systems, they're like very critical of like something that they find that they think doesn't make sense, but often it's simply because a trade-off had to be done, right? Where we had to make sure that like we were safe on like another front, and we believe that in that initial in that specific moment, that other front would be like a bigger attack vector than the thing that they pointed out, right? So in regards to like the criticism of the system, it is very, very complex, and it is something that like over time should reach like the goal of it being as resistant towards any attack vectors as possible.
Do you think MakerDAO is the killer dApp of Ethereum?
I think that's like a question that like a lot of people they use kind of like use this meme, what is the killer app of dApp? I think 2019 has definitely showed that decentralized finance has a strong use case on Ethereum, and we also see other mainnets really wanting to join the decentralized finance movement, and we also at Maker we have had a lot of interest from other mainnets as well. So it definitely seems like finance is something that is a really, really strong use case, especially with the growth rates we have seen through 2019. But I think it would be difficult to say that it is the killer app, because we might see something being built in the future that potentially could have hundreds of millions of active users, right? And then I think that would probably take over the place.
Could you also use DeFi on Bitcoin as a second layer so that you don't need Ethereum for it?
So I mean, I think with Bitcoin, Bitcoin on Bitcoin's mainnet, it's clearly not possible, right? But a lot of people they're talking about like side chains that has smart contract functionality, But then again, then you make a trade-off, right? Because then it happens on a side chain, right? So like personally for me, I really believe in like the main net of Ethereum. I believe is much stronger than like any side chain of Bitcoin. Also the Lightning networks. But I do know that like some people, I think the funny thing there is that like people, they would take heads against Ethereum or take heads against any other mainnet from the Bitcoin side of things, but at the same time promoting like Lightning network, which is clearly like a side chain. And whenever you increase transaction speed and increase efficiency on like the same consensus mechanisms, then it's often a trade-off of decentralization, right? So like the Bitcoin sidechain is nowhere nearly as decentralized as the mainnet. So I don't believe that a sidechain of Bitcoin would be able to achieve the same at all. I believe that Bitcoin would have a very strong place in the Ethereum DeFi space. And there's like some projects I'm really excited about, like Ren Protocol. They came out with like their mainnet test version last year. We also have Herdius, where they are trying to bridge Bitcoin to Ethereum in a trustless manner. And I also believe that would be much more powerful than a side chain on Bitcoin. So like I don't really get the argument that it would be much stronger on Bitcoin, because then I believe we would have seen it on Bitcoin yet. If you look in the past year, the past 12 months, like how many new DeFi projects has come out, I think it clearly speaks to the case that there's almost none of them has been focusing on Bitcoin, right? Even though Bitcoin is the place with 70% of the amount of value in crypto. So like if they come out with like a new design, then maybe I could be convinced that it would be like a strong place, but I haven't really seen any solutions on like any of the sidechains so far that has really convinced me.
Apart from Maker, what do you think is the most interesting project in the DeFi space or crypto space in general?
I think there's definitely like a lot of interesting experiments out there. I think synthetics has been pretty interesting, especially with like the crash they had the other day, and just in general like a model that it looks pretty inflationary, but if they can get it to work, and I believe like a lot of these things, the reason why I say experiment is because a lot of the things we actually don't really know what's happening when they get released into the wild or gets released into the markets. But I definitely believe that like that's a project that I'm not necessarily saying that I 100% agree with the model, but I think it's very interesting to follow, right? And then I really personally have been like a big fan of like DYDX. I really enjoy trading on that one. And then I'm really looking forward to seeing like more like when we start getting more assets on Ethereum, like more like legacy world assets, and we start applying those together with decentralized finance. I think that will be really interesting. I'm also really looking forward to following the trend that we have so far. We have seen like a trend, especially in Asia, where local companies have made I wouldn't say copies, but similar models to like Compound, for example, like peer-to-peer lending, but specifically made for like a local market. So we have like Trinitio in Korea, for example. We have Constant in Vietnam, where I know, for example, Constant has been quite successful so far, and they also use dApp in getting some local communities around decentralized finance. I think decentralized finance is very community-based, and especially if you target local markets, it's really beneficial for you to have people on the ground there that can talk and help the local community. So like following that evolution of like more and more like localized versions of these projects, I think will be very interesting as well.
What do you think about NFT?
I think NFTs are like extremely powerful. Actually, we got on like the business team at Maker as a Christmas gift, or like a Christmas present. We got like a tokenized wine. So now on my phone I have a case of tokenized wine it's getting bottled in 2021. So in 2021 I can redeem it, and I can get a case of Bordeaux wine sent to my house. So I think some of these use cases are like very, very interesting, because it all of a sudden can bring global accessibility to something that previously really weren't very accessible. And then there's for example, within games, I believe that it holds immense value. We have in the past seen people spending a lot of money on games where they actually, technically don't own the assets, and they cannot move the assets off the games. But all of a sudden now we have a space where, we have seen, very, very, very expensive NFTs, almost beating records in terms of traditional games, because all of a sudden you have this tangible asset that you can move around, right? So I believe that NFTs holds and can represent some very, very interesting opportunities, and it's really also one of the places where we are focusing a lot on the MakerDAO end, on how can we be one of the biggest players in this upcoming NFT space.
Do you think NFT will drive the next hype?
So I mean, whenever people they talk about bull runs and stuff, I don't think we will see a similar bull run to what happened in 2017. I think now you need to be much more cherry picking, right? I mean, you need to know the good projects. I don't think we will see the same every single project going up like crazy. It might happen, of course. I cannot predict the future, but maybe I'm also just very skeptical of projects in general. But I believe that NFTs is another way to bring a lot of value, and also bring people into the crypto space that wouldn't necessarily come for speculation in Bitcoin or something like that, right? Where they would come because they enjoy playing this game that then pays them out in these NFTs. Or for example, with the wine that I got is from a Norwegian company called dApp, and they're tokenizing $500 million of wine in 2020. So a company like that, that appeals to a completely new segment. That doesn't necessarily want to come in, speculate in Bitcoin or Ethereum or build a dApp, but they might just be very interested in wine. And then if there's this great product that allows them to buy these rare wines and invest in them on the internet, then that's all of a sudden something that is very appealing to people, right? So I think it will definitely bring a lot more users. Whether that will be reflected in price, I'm not sure, but they will definitely come.
Do you want to add some points about Maker that we didn't mention yet?
No, I think we covered some good points here. I think for me almost it feels like we almost now it's 2020, so now kind of everything, it doesn't reset, but a lot of stuff now needs to kind of get started, and it's we had a lot of really big projects that got pushed because of Christmas. So especially on the business and partnership side of Maker, we have some really, really big announcements coming out over the next few months. So if you guys are interested in what's going on our end here, you can check us at MakerDAO on Twitter, or at our blog .makerdao.com, where we come out with the more new specific things and a little bit bigger announcements. But yeah, definitely look at that. We have some really cool stuff coming out in regards to blockchain games as well, that we also believe a lot in. So shout out to Axie Infinity and that fund, who has been super pleasant to work with on that, and we have some cool stuff coming out with their mobile version as well. So yeah, stay tuned for some upcoming updates on that fund.